Well, good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. We are now going to be doing a session with Jack Ward of British Growers and Mark Phillips of Produce View. And it's all about buying British. So I'll hand you over to Jack now.
Right, thank you very much, everybody, and welcome to this session. And this is a slightly strange experience talking through these headphones, but never mind, we'll kind of get used to it. So what we want to do for the next 20 minutes or so is a bit of a double act. My colleague Mark Phillips is going to talk about our data gathering intelligence service and just explain to you some of the developments we've been having over the past 2 or 3 months to try and make the service more relevant and more applicable to the fresh produce industry. But before we do that, I've got an opportunity really to talk to you in broader terms about Brexit. Inevitably, everywhere you go, there is a discussion about Brexit. And as we withdraw from the EU and as we withdraw from the CAP, I think the question facing us as an organisation is, what does the opportunity look like within the fresh produce industry? And then how do we set about capturing that produce, that opportunity? Now, before we go too much further, I've got to do the inevitable commercial. Who is British Growers? What is it? What do we do? We are a grower-owned, grower-led umbrella group that represents a group of organisations operating right across the fresh produce industry. Sorry, can I take that off? Can you still hear me? Yeah, I kind of think. So the membership includes crop associations, producer organisations, marketing associations, and as a result of this contact across the fresh produce industry, we become a bit of a focal point for the fresh produce sector from a grower perspective. So that's a very quick list of the organisations we work with, we work for. So you can see from that we have fairly broad coverage right across the industry. Now, really, this is about just talking to you about the pitch that we want to make to government about the fresh produce industry. What is it that we're saying to the government? Because they're very much in listening mode about how the whole agricultural industry goes forward. So what is it that we want to say on behalf of the fresh produce industry? So I think the first point that we want to make to DEFRA is the food industry is a very, very substantial operation. You put together retail with food service, with the exports, we're looking at a £200 billion operation. And there's been lots of criticism of the Health and Harmony document because it doesn't really talk about food, it doesn't really talk about the business of food production. So point number one, this is a massive industry, and within that industry, there is surely opportunity. There is enough money there to go at to warrant having a serious strategy for how we capture a bigger slice of the pie. The next thing is, where does our food come from? And if you look at the bottom set, which is about fresh produce, you can see there, as everybody knows, we are massively dependent on imported produce. Now, there's an inevitability about that. Obviously, we can't produce everything that we need. We don't produce bananas, we don't produce pineapples. There's a seasonal requirement for it. But within that, is there an opportunity to capture a little bit more of the market share? So that kind of begs the question, where are we at the moment? So this is a slide we put together which kind of shows where we are in terms of market share across the UK. And you can see there, at the top end, we've got beetroot, parsnip, swede, carrots, peas. We are around about 100%. We have got most of the market share for UK produce. But if you come down to the other end, things like pears, cut flowers, tomatoes, things like apples, mushrooms, we are significantly underproduced in those commodities. And I think the message to DEFRA is, why are we underproduced in some of those commodities? And if you take mushrooms as a really good example, there's absolutely no reason why we shouldn't do more than 40% of our market share. Mushrooms, the second biggest vegetable by value in the UK. So why don't we do more of it? There's also the whole health agenda, which is gathering pace. There are lots and lots of different things about the health agenda. We know that we don't consume enough fresh produce. We know that we've got to consume more. We know that it's linked to diabetes. We know the cost of diabetes. part of the solution, clearly not the whole solution, is that actually we should be doing more about promoting the consumption of fresh vegetables. There's a figure there that if we actually ate the recommended guidelines, there's an opportunity for another 1.5 million tonnes of produce. But obviously it's not all plain sailing. There are a number of issues which the fresh produce from a grower perspective has got to address as we go forward. And I think we just have to acknowledge that. And the first one is the relentless pace of change within the retail sector. Now, every time I give a presentation, I have to update that because there's been some momentous change within the retail sector. And the obviously missing one there is the Sainsbury's-Asda merger. I kind of think that's probably not going to go away, and we're just going to be continually responding to a whole set of moves within the retail sector as they come to terms with some of the difficulties they face. So I think we have to recognise that actually the pace of change within the retail sector, will remain a big issue for the growers. Access to labour, I don't need to say very much more about that. We know how difficult it is. We know the problems. We just urgently need government to come forward with a solution. I don't think there's much more we can say on that that hasn't already been well said. The next one is sort of slightly, almost as important. Before seasonal labour, this would have been top of the agenda for a lot of growers, is plant protection. We're seeing this continuous erosion of plant protection products. That is making the task of producing Class 1 product in the volumes and quality required ever more difficult. And that remains a fairly major issue. So we have Brexit. How does this look like an opportunity? And how do we set about trying to capture this opportunity? Now, there are a number of things that the government is interested in, and the first one is this whole issue of productivity. And this is where I think there's a really interesting opportunity for a dialogue with government about how government could help the fresh produce industry move forward. And the first one is increasing volume. Now, increasing volume is not relevant to every part of the fresh produce industry, but I've put up these two examples by way of comparison. You can see there strawberries on the right hand, on your left-hand side. So 96, strawberry production was about 40,000 tonnes in the UK. 20 years later, that has increased to 115,000 tonnes. So you can see that the soft fruit industry has done a fantastic job on its productivity. Compare that with peas on the right-hand side. And remember, peas in area terms is the biggest vegetable crop we grow. In 25 years, we have made no impact whatsoever on the volume of peas we grow or we produce per acre. So what has been going on? What do we need to do differently in some areas to increase our volume? Oh. So the next one is about, again, talking to DEFRA, how do we continue to improve the quality of what we do? How do we make sure that the maximum possible percentage of everything we grow, everything we produce, hits that Class 1 level? So we don't see large percentages of produce not making the grade and having to go out at significantly reduced values. So again, it's an interesting area where there's more work to be done in terms of how we go forward. Reducing cost, automation, is going to be the holy grail for a lot of fresh produce sectors. What do we need to do? What does government need to do? How can we get government to help accelerate the application of automation into fresh produce industry? We know that seasonal labour is going to get more difficult to secure. Therefore, we need to look harder. We need to accelerate the introduction of automation into the industry. That's the kind of area where we probably need government support. How do you reduce the risk of growing crops? Those of you actually producing crops will know that some of this stuff is fantastically expensive to put in the ground, and the last thing you want to find is just as about you harvest it or during the growing process, some untoward event comes along and actually that entire investment is wiped out. So how do we set about reducing the risk? And this is all part of the productivity equation. This all amounts to how do we produce product more effectively, more efficiently, and at a lower cost, because that, I suspect, is what the market is going to be looking for. What about waste minimization? The last thing we want to be doing is growing crops that don't realize good money. So how do we tackle that problem? What is it? How do we work more carefully with governments, with retailers, to minimize the proportion of crop that doesn't actually reach the consumer's basket on a weekly basis? R&D and innovation, this is a really critical area for the fresh produce industry, because in many instances there aren't ready-made solutions for a lot of the problems we face. There isn't sort of a global effort as there is for cereals and some of the other bigger broadacre crops, where you've got companies working on solutions. Quite often we're looking at a particular problem for which there is no solution, and the industry has got to go out and create a solution. So having that pipeline of R&D and innovation is going to be absolutely critical in terms of making a successful industry for the future. And what do we do about new product development? The market, we know, is hungry for lots of new products. Where is the English equivalent of the Pink Lady? We've seen the inroads that Pink Lady has made into the UK apple market. How are we then going to respond? Oh, there we go. We're back in business. We know that the market is hungry for an English apple that is capable of being marketed for 12 months of the year. There is a gap in the market at the moment for that product. How are we then going to get that product onto the market so that we can capitalize on that opportunity? That's the kind of thing that's going to increase our share of the UK market. And promotion. There's some really, really good examples of promotion. We know that Summer Fruits have done a fantastic job with the strawberries. They're spending a few £100,000 on soft fruit promotion. We know that English apples and pears have a broadly similar budget that they spend on promoting English apples. Asparagus, peas, leafy salads, we're spending tens of thousands on promoting these products. Compare that with the dairy milk, where they're spending £12 million promoting dairy milk. And it just gives an indication of the size of the challenge. And I just don't think as an industry, we just don't have the capacity to do that. And part of the message to government is, this is not just about trying to make growers more profitable, although that's hugely important. Actually, there's a broader message about how do we make society healthier at the same time. So these are all the kind of things that we need to be putting as part of our pitch to DEFRA for the future. Some of you will may be familiar with this new campaign which the Food Foundation, they're downstairs if you get an opportunity to go and talk to them, are putting together. I think they've come at it from a health angle. They recognise that we're seriously under-consumed in vegetables. What can we do across the industry to try and turn the dial on the consumption of veg? And almost by sheer force of personality, they brought together some heavy hitters. There's Hugh Fearnley-Whittingstall, there's Jamie Oliver involved. They've now got Sir John Hegarty involved, who is a kind of absolute PR, communications, advertising guru. How can we work together across the industry to have a more comprehensive and more impactful advertising campaign for produce and vegetables in particular? So really, I think what we're about is actually going to government and saying, we believe that on behalf of the fresh produce industry, we've got a really compelling offer. It's not just about us wanting support and wanting help. We think we can really do something here. there is an opportunity to increase our percentage of the market share. We're not talking about having 100% or being self-sufficient. We're just talking about actually how can we edge that percentage up. Because if we edge that percentage up, that's really important economic activity in rural areas. And for every acre of fresh produce, there's a whole series of downstream, upstream economic activity that benefits as well. We reduce our reliance on imports. You know, that's quite important. There are export opportunities. Yes, they're difficult to access. Yes, they're currency related, but who knows in the future? And DEFRA is really interested in what we might be able to export. We need to be in that space. Healthy lifestyles, I kind of sense this is only going to increase in terms of importance. We need to be there. What do we need to do to get there? Productivity in all of those guises. It's not just volume, it's about risk, it's about cost, it's about waste. We know that we need to do more innovation, we need more new products, and we've got this whole issue of reducing waste, and making the whole thing more sustainable. And really the final point there, when Michael Gove was talking during the winter, he introduced this phrase about building natural capital. I'm not sure many people entirely understood what it was about, but kind of, if you paraphrase it, it was about making the whole thing more sustainable. What are we going to contribute in terms of having a greener country? And actually, when you look across what some of the things they're doing in the fresh produce industry, I think we're extremely well placed to contribute to that requirement as well. So that kind of summarizes what we've been saying to DEFRA, and this is about saying to DEFRA there is opportunity here. We don't particularly want to go to them with a whole catalogue of problems. We're just not convinced that they're interested in problems. They're looking for opportunities, and I think with across the fresh produce industry there is some real opportunity, and now is the moment to be shouting about it. Okay. Right, I'm now going to move on. One of the things that DEFRA has been really interested in is data. I think they recognize that there is a real shortage of good data available to growers and available to businesses right across the agricultural spectrum. And one of the things they want to do is try and improve the availability and accessibility of that data. So I'm now going to pass them over to Mark, who's going to talk to you about some of the things that we're doing around data. Mark.
Good afternoon. Which button am I pressing here, Jack? Oh. Good afternoon. We seem to have lost transmission for a moment.
There we go.
Have I?
I don't.
Hang on a second. I'm pressing the right button, right?
Yeah, I'm going to ask.
Can everyone hear me okay? That's very good. Well, I'm going to talk about market information and driving transparency and efficiency. And I work with, we're back in again. Right. With that? Yeah, so with that. I work with Jack as British Growers. The wrong button. That was what the problem is. Yeah. Okay, we've got it back now. We're okay. But I work for the produce view part of it, and I'm going to cycle back from basically what Jack was saying and go back to a quote from DEFRA. DEFRA want to explore how the collection and dissemination of market data could be improved to increase transparency, encourage better communication and sharing of information, and support the efficiency and the working across the supply chain. Produce View is the affordable and unique solution to do precisely that, and it's far too superior to the internet foragers out in the rest of the market. And I'm going to tell you a little bit about it. Effectively, Produce View is a management information tool. We have individuals in stores collecting data every week. The kind of data they're collecting is price, variety, country of origin, count and size where it's appropriate. It's a true representation of what's on sale. So there are businesses like Brandview who will actually do an internet foraging exercise, if you like. Basically go through all the retailers' online shopping sites and give you that data. This gives you true, live and accurate store data. All right. We have some 10 years of history, and we have real-time in-store photo capture. So we're taking photographs of the fixture every single week, and we're storing those, and those are available to our subscribers. We cover all major multiples, and we cover M&S, Aldi, Lidl and convenience, and that's outlets like Locals and Express. And we have a data collection service which can be bespoke for you. So if you or your businesses have data that needs collecting live in store for a week, for a day, for a month, we can do that too. Historically, Produce View has been a subscription tool where our partners have gone and basically on a 24/7 basis pulled a bunch of data off and processed it themselves, and it's updated weekly and in real time. And it's also been used as a backward-looking research tool. And we've produced bi-weekly reports for the FPJ. This model has worked well, and it's underwritten Produce View as the data source of choice for the fruit and vegetable industry. It's available online in Excel, and it has worked, Jack, very well for us in the past. But now things are changing. We've decided to turn up the heat on our Produce View product. We're changing the focus, and we're providing weekly in-store snapshots built around the requirements of our client. So basically, if you're a grower or a retailer, you have a specific interest in a category, we can build a report specifically for you. You can build those weekly, and we can run those into monthly trend reports as well. And on the side, we're starting to develop some mutually beneficial partnerships with grower organisations and special interest groups, for instance, environmental or organic groups. These monthly reports complement our Produce View service and are available under the British Growers brand. So what's the point? Well, Produce View and the British Growers weekly snapshots and monthly snapshot reports can answer some of those key questions facing our industry. For instance, which retailer has the lowest price for a selection of items? Who tops the Britishness index? And when we're talking about Brexit, Jack, that could be kind of a fairly critical point as retailers jockey for position for their Britishness credentials. Who has the lowest food miles? If you combine this data with Kantar or Nielsen, you can do a very accurate representation of who is the greenest retailer or who is the greenest grower producer. Who really is the first to market on some of those seasonal varieties that consumers love? For instance, strawberries or asparagus. And who has them on shelf for longest? We did some work recently on asparagus, and you'd expect Sainsbury's, Waitrose or even M&S to have the English asparagus earlier and for longer. Really not the case. You'd be surprised what the answer to that one was. Who offers the widest range of varieties and sizes in any given category? And who has the widest organic range and perhaps the lowest premium versus conventional? This is data that only Produce View can give you. It's all, and as well as all those, if you're any category managers amongst us, as well as those usual questions that as category managers want to know, and the answers to financial opportunities in terms of gap analysis, range reviews, opportunity gaps, and read across. And for our growers and partners, that is going to make them more money. So a little bit more about those snapshot reports, new for 2018. This is some examples of the reports that we do. So this is representing, we're using the example of apples here. This is representing promotions that are available, that are happening in the apple category, week commencing the 14th of the 5th. This represents, in that period, UK versus imported. So immediately you can see that Sainsbury's, the orange segment, had the highest percentage of English versus their imported, and poor old Asda only had one English SKU during this time. This is information growers will want to know, and this is information retailers will want to know. So the reports can track a basket of items which you can select. It can cover the whole category as well. This is real world prices. This is not something that's dragged theoretically off the internet. We cover M&S, who don't do online shopping. We cover discounters and convenience. It comprehensively covers promotions, and it gives you full country of origin and varietals. And we can do count and weight where it's relevant too. There's 10 years of history, and we have those real-time fixture photographs that will enable you to see if your product is in stock in that retailer, and it's all delivered in a convenient, presentable format. And it's all tailored to meet your needs, so your business will make more money. That is the whole point. So just in summary then, a Produce View is a management tool which offers unique data versus the internet foragers like BrandView. We offer price, variety, excuse me, country of origin and count size. It is a true representation of what's on sale, not what theoretically should be available online. We have 10 years of history, and we've got real-time fixture coverage. We cover all major mults, M&S, Aldi, Lidl, and those convenience formats that are relevant. We can offer you a bespoke, one-off service, and as well as our subscription service, we have the British Growers' new weekly and monthly reports. And of course, it's backed by the independent and dependable British Growers with over 20 years of history in the UK. But frankly, it's a cost-effective solution for giving you data versus any competitor out there. There's a data sheet on the front. If you'd like to pick it up on your way out, I'd be very happy to share that with you. And if this is relevant, please pick up the phone, email, whatever's important, and let's talk about the needs of your country, your business, and how Produce View could help make you more money. Thank you very much. Are there any questions?
Yeah.
Thank you very much. Yeah, does anybody have any questions for Mark and Jack? Can you hear me with this? Anybody got any questions?
Explained it too well.
You did. Well, wonderful. Thank you very much. And the presentations will be on the website next week in PDF and video format for you. Okay? Thank you very much.